As a physician with nearly 3 decades of experience, I need to talk to you about something that has my complete, undivided attention. It's a finding from a new Department of Defense-funded study, and it was just presented at one of the world's top oncology conferences.
And this is the number that just stopped me in my tracks. 90%. That's the percentage of men in the study who had plastic particles deep inside their prostate tumor tissue. And let me be clear, we're not talking about surface contamination. We're talking about plastic found inside the cancerous cells themselves. All right, section 1. Plastic inside the tumor. Let's get right into this. This isn't just some random finding. We're seeing a specific, measurable buildup of plastic inside the very cells that have turned malignant. We absolutely have to understand what that means.
So check this out. Researchers at NYU found that the concentration of plastic was over 2.5 times higher in the cancerous tissue compared to the healthy tissue sitting right next to it. Think about that for a second. The plastic isn't just randomly spread out, it seems to be accumulating right where the trouble is. That right there, that's the signal.
Okay, section 2, a systemic threat. And before you think, well, that's just a prostate issue, I have to show you that this pattern is appearing elsewhere. We're seeing the same contaminant linked to catastrophic outcomes in other critical parts of the body.
This right here is from a 2024 study in the New England Journal of Medicine, arguably the most influential medical journal on the planet. And what it found was staggering. Patients with microplastics inside the plaques in their arteries had a 4.5 times greater risk of a heart attack, stroke, or death. Let that sink in for a moment. 4.5 times. It's the same contaminant, a different organ, but it's the same catastrophic pattern.
Now, I need to stop here and be absolutely crystal clear. If you're currently under treatment for cancer or a cardiovascular condition, you must bring this information to your physician before you change a single thing. It is crucial that any action you take complements and does not interfere with your existing medical care. This is a conversation you have with your doctor, period.
So, section 3, the attack on your stem cells. What is actually going on here at the cellular level? I know the headlines are alarming, but understanding the mechanism is what gives us the power to act. And the attack is particularly damaging to your stem cells, your body's core repair system, which, naturally becomes more vulnerable after age 50.
Microplastics assault your body's repair crews through 4 interlocking mechanisms. And I want you to think of them as 4 distinct attacks that actually work together to amplify each other's damage.
First, there's inflammation. Your immune system sees the plastic, it mounts an attack, but it's an attack it can't win. It can't break the plastic down. So what happens? You end up with a state of permanent, low-grade inflammation. It's like a fire that never goes out, just smoldering in the background, accelerating aging.
Second, these plastics act like tiny Trojan horses. They absorb and carry hormone-disrupting chemicals directly into sensitive tissues like the prostate, delivering these scrambled signals that your cells just can't interpret correctly.
Third, they generate what we call free radicals, or oxidative stress. Think of them as tiny, unstable molecules that ricochet around inside your cells, damaging the genetic blueprint, the DNA, of your stem cells. And this is especially dangerous when your body's natural antioxidant defenses are already starting to decline with age. And fourth, they disrupt your gut. Ingested plastics can harm the good bacteria that produce a critical compound called butyrate. Now, butyrate is essential for keeping your gut wall strong. Without enough of it, that wall can become permeable, allowing inflammatory compounds to leak out and flood your entire system. So here's the crucial point. These 4 mechanisms don't happen in isolation. They stack. The inflammation causes more oxidative stress, which weakens the gut, which in turn creates even more inflammation. It's a vicious, self-reinforcing cycle of damage.
And I have to emphasize this. After age 60, your body's natural resilience is already decreasing. This makes the added burden from microplastics particularly significant. The biological direction here, it's not ambiguous at all.
Okay, section 4, the cellular defense protocol. So now that we've established the problem, let's pivot to the solution. This isn't about fear, it is about action. Let's walk through a clear, evidence-based protocol to reduce your exposure and bolster your body's own defenses.
Here are 6 actionable steps you can start today. First, boil your drinking water for a full 3 to 5 minutes. Research shows this simple step can remove up to 90% of these plastics. Second, replace your plastic containers, especially for anything you heat. Then, we support the body directly. Activate powerful antioxidant pathways with things like broccoli sprouts. Reduce systemic inflammation with curcumin and piperine. Feed the good bacteria in your gut with psyllium husk. And finally, purify the air you breathe every day with a true HEPA filter, a major source many people overlook.
Now, a very specific and important warning. Curcumin is a powerful natural anti-inflammatory, but it can interact with blood-thinning medication. If you are on any type of blood thinner, you must consult your doctor before adding curcumin to your regimen. This is non-negotiable. So, Section 5, Proof, a meaningful shift. Does this stuff actually work? Well, this isn't just theory. Consistent, simple changes can lead to measurable clinical results. Let me tell you about a patient of mine I'll call David.
David's a 61-year-old retired engineer, and he wasn't perfect with this protocol. He just focused on 2 things, the boiled water and replacing his plastic kitchen containers. In just 4 months, his high-sensitivity C-reactive protein, a key blood marker for systemic inflammation, dropped from an elevated level of 3.4 down to 1.1, which is right in the middle of the average range.
And this is the part I want you to really hear. His own physician looked at these new numbers and called it a meaningful clinical shift. David did the right things consistently, and it moved the needle in a big way.
Let's put this all back into the bigger picture. 1 in 8 American men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime, and according to the CDC, that number continues to climb every single year for men over 55. This is not happening in a vacuum.
All right, Section 6, your path forward. The research is now clear. The plastic is already in your body. That is no longer a question or speculation. It is what peer-reviewed research now shows.
And let me say this one last time, because it's the single most important takeaway here. This protocol is about supporting your health. It works alongside your existing medical care. It never, ever replaces the guidance of your doctor.
So the real question now is a simple one. Are you going to take steps to reduce what enters your body from today forward? And will you strengthen the systems that protects you from what's already there? Your stem cells are doing quiet, essential work every single day. The choice is whether you'll give them the conditions they need to keep doing it.
In our last explainer, we dug into that shocking discovery of microplastics found deep inside tumor tissue. I mentioned a few ways these plastics really mess with our bodies, and one of them was the total destruction of your gut microbiome. Well, that's not just some side note, that's a main event. So today, we're doing a deep dive, because what's happening in your gut right now is either your best defense against cancer, or it's quietly helping it along.
I want to start with a number, just one number that I think completely changes how you see yourself. 38 trillion. That's how many microbial cells are living inside your gut. It's a number so big it's almost impossible to picture. It's a whole universe living inside you.
And here's where it gets really wild. Your whole body, everything you think of as you, is made of about 30 trillion human cells. So yeah, do the math. By sheer cell count, you are more microbial than you are human. For so long, we treated this inner world like it was just there. But we now know it's an active player. It's talking to your immune system, it's influencing your hormones, and crucially, it has a huge say in your cancer risk.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to unpack the problem, what I call the leaky barrier to cancer. Then we'll meet the hero of this story, an amazing molecule called butyrate. After that, we'll identify the 3 big things that are wrecking our guts. And then we get to the good stuff, a clear 4-part plan to rebuild it all. And finally, what that timeline to a stronger defense actually looks like.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. It all starts with your gut lining. You have to think of it as this critical security wall. It stands between those trillions of microbes and your bloodstream. And believe me, the strength of that wall is everything.
And this wall, this barrier, it's unbelievably thin. We're talking one single cell thick, just one cell. What holds it all together are these little protein seals called tight junctions. When they're working right, good stuff like nutrients gets in, and bad stuff like toxins stays out. Simple. But when they start to break down, that's a condition we call leaky gut. That security gate is just wide open.
And that kicks off this really dangerous chain reaction. First, those tight junctions get weak, then these bacterial toxins. There's one in particular called LPS. They escape the gut and get into your blood. Your immune system sees this and freaks out, launching a full-scale attack, but because the leak never stops, the attack never stops. And what started as a local gut problem becomes this constant, low-grade, body-wide fire of inflammation.
So here's the bottom line, the absolute key takeaway. Chronic inflammation is like fertilizer for cancer. It's one of the most well-known drivers of the disease. It helps cancer cells survive, it builds new blood vessels to feed them, and it even tells your own cancer-fighting immune cells to just stand down. It literally makes your body a welcoming home for cancer to set up shop.
Now, I know that all sounds pretty grim, but there is an incredibly powerful force working against all of this. There's a hero in this story, and it's a molecule that's produced right inside your own gut. It's called butyrate.
So who makes this stuff? Well, it's a special group of bacteria we call keystone species. You know, they've got these long scientific names like Faeculibacterium and Roseburia. But you can just think of them as the A-team. They're the master chefs of your gut. You feed them fiber and they turn it into this absolutely critical cancer-fighting compound.
And this is so incredible about butyrate. It has this genius dual function. On one hand, it's the main source of fuel for the healthy cells that line your colon. It keeps that barrier wall strong and sealed. But at the very same time, it acts like a smart bomb. It's a signal that specifically tells cancer cells to self-destruct. That process is called apoptosis, all while leaving your healthy cells totally unharmed. It's amazing.
And hey, this isn't just a cool theory. Get this. A huge study back in 2022, published in Nature Communications, looked at over 2,000 people. And it found that the single biggest predictor of whether someone would get colorectal cancer, it wasn't their age, it wasn't their family history, it was how many of these butyrate-producing bacteria they had in their gut. That's how important this is.
Okay, so if these little guys are so critical for our defense, then what on earth is wiping them out? Why are so many of us running low on these protectors? Well, it really boils down to three main attackers.
First up, antibiotic overuse. Just one round can obliterate up to half of the diversity in your gut, and some of those good guys might never recover. Number two, the standard American diet. It's basically a starvation diet for our beneficial bacteria because it has almost none of the fiber they need to eat. And third, chronic stress. Through that amazing gut-brain connection, stress can directly poison the environment for our best microbial allies.
And this chart, wow, this really says it all on the diet front. The average American gets maybe 15 grams of fiber a day. The absolute minimum recommendation is double that at 30. But then look at our hunter-gatherer ancestors. They were crushing over 100 grams a day. We are literally starving the very bacteria that are supposed to be protecting us. It's a massive deficit.
All right, enough of the bad news. We get it. There's a problem. So let's pivot to the solution. Let's talk about an actual actionable plan to build a gut that's tough, resilient, and resistant to disease.
It's a four-pronged approach. Pretty straightforward. 1, we have to add back the right kinds of fiber. 2, we'll use specific probiotics as a temporary boost. 3, we're going to bring in a powerhouse compound called sulforaphane. And 4, we need to get polyphenol-rich foods in our diet every single day.
So for step 1, fiber. We have to be smart about it. Not just any fiber. Psyllium husk is a super easy place to start. But you also want variety. Things like Jerusalem artichokes give you inulin, cooked and cooled rice or potatoes give you something called resistant starch, and then you've got the real powerhouses, lentils, black beans, split peas. This is the fuel for your butyrate factories. Next up, probiotics. You want to look for specific strains that have real evidence behind them, like the ones listed here. But, and this is a really important point, think of probiotics like calling in temporary reinforcements. They help you hold the line. It's the fiber that actually rebuilds the fortress and gives them a permanent home to live in.
Step 3 brings back an old friend, sulforaphane, which is packed into broccoli sprouts. This stuff delivers a fantastic 1-2 punch. First, it flips the switch on your body's own powerful antioxidant defenses, and second, it acts as a prebiotic, which means it's food that selectively feeds the good guys in your gut.
And finally, step 4, polyphenols. This is the easy, delicious part. These are just the colorful compounds in plants. So think mixed berries. Frozen is totally fine and often cheaper. Green tea, even things like onions and apples. They travel all the way down to your colon, where they feed good bacteria and help put out that inflammatory fire right at the source.
So let's say you're doing all this. What can you actually expect to happen and when? You know, it's really important to be realistic here. This isn't an overnight fix. This is real biological change we're talking about.
Okay, so in the first week, you probably notice your body is just adapting. But within about 4 to 6 weeks, studies show you can get measurable increases in that all-important butyrate. Fast forward to 3 months, your microbial diversity can really start to stabilize, and you might see inflammation markers begin to drop. But the real magic happens around 6 months of being consistent. That's when you can see durable, lasting shifts in your gut that create real systemic benefits.
So what this all boils down to is this. You're not just trying to manage some bloating. You're not just treating symptoms. You are fundamentally rebuilding the entire environment inside your body. You are creating an internal ecosystem that is designed to be strong, resilient, and actively hostile to cancer.
And that brings us full circle. Rebuilding the gut that things like microplastics are constantly trying to tear down, it isn't some separate, optional side project. It's a core part of a single, coherent strategy to give your body the best possible chance to defend itself. So the only question left is, are you ready to start the work? So here's a question for you. What's the link between the plastics in our world, the bacteria in our gut, and why our bodies seem to break down faster after we hit 50? Well, today, we're diving deep into the one mechanism that sits right at the center of it all. It's called inflammaging. And trust me, once you understand how this silent fire really works, you are never going to look at the word inflammation the same way again. Okay, let's get right into it. We all know about acute inflammation. You sprain your ankle, it swells up, gets red, hurts a bit. That's your body's firefighter crew, right? Rushing to the scene to put out the fire and start repairs. It's an amazing system. But the problem is, that system was never designed for the world we live in now, a world of constant, low-level threats. And when those alarm bells never ever stop ringing, you get something totally different. Chronic inflammation. This isn't a firefighter, no. This is more like a silent arsonist, constantly pouring a little bit of gasoline on a low-grade fire inside your body that just never, ever goes out.
And this is where we get to the absolute heart of it. This persistent, smoldering fire has a name, inflammaging. It's the hidden connection, the mechanism that ties that chronic inflammation directly to how fast you actually age.
The term itself is, a mashup of inflammation and aging. It was coined by an immunologist named Claudio Franceschi. But it's so much more than just a catchy phrase. Inflammaging describes this really nasty, vicious cycle where chronic inflammation actually drives biological aging. And then the process of aging, with all its cellular damage, turns around and fuels even more inflammation. It's a feedback loop that, once it gets going, just keeps feeding itself.
So what's actually fueling this fire? I mean, this isn't some vague, mysterious force. We're talking about specific molecules here. These are your body's emergency signals. They're called cytokines. And when they get stuck in the on position, they become the key attackers. And you know what? Putting a face to the enemy, well, that's the first step to figuring out how to fight back. So let's meet attacker number 1, interleukin-6, or IL-6 for short. Now, normally, in a healthy response, IL-6 spikes up for a little bit to sound the alarm, and then it goes away. But in a state of inflammaging, it's always there,
just hanging around at a low level. And that's where the real system-wide damage starts. And the damage it does, wow, it's all over the place. It messes with your insulin signaling, it tells your body to break down bone faster, and maybe worst of all, it helps create what scientists call zombie cells. These are old, damaged cells that should just die off, but instead they stick around and start pumping out even more inflammatory signals, basically spreading the dysfunction to all the healthy tissue around them.
All right, on to attacker number 2, and you can see how this all starts to snowball. This one is called tumor necrosis factor alpha, or TNF-alpha. And just like IL-6, it's a hero in the short term, but it becomes a real villain when it hangs around for the long haul.
So the key thing with TNF-alpha is that it attacks your body's infrastructure. It directly damages that super delicate lining of your blood vessels, which is a key step in plaque formation. And it gets in the way of your muscle cells working properly, which leads directly to something called sarcopenia. That's the official term for age-related muscle loss, that feeling of just getting weaker as the years go by.
And that brings us to our third attacker, interleukin-1 beta. This one has a particularly sneaky target, and it really shows just how widespread the damage from inflammation truly is.
And here's what's so critical to understand. Your brain is not safe from this. IL-1 beta can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and light a fire, inflammation, inside your brain. We now have research linking chronically high levels of IL-1 beta to cognitive decline, to depression, and even to measurable shrinkage of the hippocampus, which is your brain's memory center. So your brain isn't just a bystander here, it's a primary target.
Okay, so we've met the attackers. Now for the real aha moment. Why is this whole process so devastating, so central to aging? It's because it hits you where it hurts the most. It degrades your body's own internal repair crew. See, your stem cells are your body's maintenance workers. They're constantly replacing damaged cells everywhere. Your gut, your muscles, your blood vessels. But when their local neighborhood, their little niche, gets flooded with all these inflammatory chemicals, they just can't do their job. They get exhausted. Some of them turn into those zombie cells we talked about. And this right here is how inflammation speeds up the breakdown of every single organ in your body at the same time. It's not one problem here, another one there. It's the slow motion failure of the master repair system that keeps everything running.
Okay, so this sounds pretty grim, but is it a one-way street? Is this damage permanent? The answer is a resounding no. And to see how, let's switch gears from the problem to the solution and look at a real-world story of a 66-year-old man we'll call Raymond, who was basically a textbook case of inflammation in action.
So Raymond came in feeling tired all the time, complaining about some brain fog, and his main inflammatory marker, something called C-reactive protein, was way too high. But just look at this change. He started at a CRP of 4.3, which is well into the high-risk zone for future problems. After just 12 months on a really targeted protocol, it dropped all the way down to 1.1. That's a massive shift, putting him squarely in the low-risk range. This wasn't guesswork. It was a measurable, undeniable reversal.
This really maps out his journey. He started with all those classic subtle signs of inflammation. We put him on a simple protocol that targeted the exact mechanisms we've been talking about. And a year later, the results were just crystal clear. His lab markers normalized, his strength improved, and he said he felt 10 years younger. And the best part, the numbers proved he wasn't just imagining it.
So you're probably thinking, okay, what did Raymond actually do? And what can I do? Well, let's break down that actionable 3-part protocol that's designed to extinguish this silent fire.
So the core protocol has 3 key pillars, and each one is like a direct counterattack against that inflammatory cascade. Let's look at why each of these is so incredibly powerful.
First up, the supplements. Vitamin D isn't just about bones. It's a powerful manager for your immune system that directly tells your body to make less of our attackers, IL-6 and TNF-alpha. At the same time, omega-3s give your body the raw materials it needs to make molecules that basically sound the all clear signal. Think of them as telling the firefighters, okay, the fire's out, you can all go home now. They actively shut the whole process down. And this isn't just theory. A huge meta-analysis back in 2019 confirmed that taking omega-3s significantly reduces all 3 of those key inflammatory attackers.
But here's the thing. For this to really work, the dose is critical. The research points to 2 to 3 grams of combined EPA and DHA every single day. And please make sure it's from a high-quality, third-party tested source. You want to make sure you're getting the good stuff without any junk.
This brings us to the third piece, and honestly, it might be the most important of all. I really want you to let this sink in. Your muscle is not just for moving you around. It is an endocrine organ. That means it's like a gland. When you do resistance exercise, lifting weights, bodyweight exercises, your contracting muscles release these incredibly powerful anti-inflammatory signals called myokines. And they don't just stay in the muscle. They travel all through your bloodstream to fight that inflammation everywhere, directly countering attackers like TNF-alpha. There's no supplement on Earth that can replace this. Just 2 to 3 sessions a week is enough to start changing your body's entire inflammatory set point. So what's the big takeaway here? The protocol we've just walked through, it's not just a random list of healthy things to do. Every single element is a targeted weapon. We're targeting specific inflammatory triggers. With nutrients, we're giving the body the building blocks to resolve inflammation. And we're using our own bodies to generate powerful anti-inflammatory signals through exercise. It's a complete framework designed to shift your entire biology from a state of chronic, constant threat to a state of managed, efficient repair.
Look, you can't erase decades of past exposures or habits, but you can absolutely change your trajectory starting today. And for anyone over 50, where the effects of this silent fire have had more time to build up, deciding to change that direction, well, that isn't just some small tweak. It might just be the most important health decision you can possibly make. The power to extinguish that fire, it's in your hands.